My name is Madison Clark, I'm 27 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one in my family. The planner. The fixer. The girl who never caused trouble and always kept things together. For the past year, I'd been saving for my dream trip, a 2-week solo vacation to Greece. It wasn't just a vacation, it was supposed to be my fresh start. I worked extra shifts as a nurse, skipped nights out with friends, and pinched every penny just so I could finally do something for myself. This morning, I stood in my bedroom staring at my half-packed suitcase, feeling that mix of nerves and excitement only travelers know. My flight was in 6 hours. I grabbed my bag to double-check my passport, and it was gone. At first, I thought I misplaced it. I tore apart my entire room, drawers, closet, under the bed, every pocket of every bag. Nothing. Panic started clawing at my chest. I searched the whole house, asking my mom and dad if they'd seen it. My dad barely looked up from the TV, muttering that I was probably overreacting. My mom just sighed and said, "Maybe you should keep your things organized next time." Then my phone buzzed. It was a social media notification. My heart sank as I opened it. There was my younger brother, Ethan Clark, smiling in front of the exact Santorini villa I had booked, captioned, "Living the dream. Wish you were here." My legs went numb. My own brother had stolen my trip, and apparently, my passport, just to rub it in my face. And in that moment, I felt something inside me snap. Ethan and I have always been opposites. I was the quiet, bookish kid who followed the rules. He was the charming troublemaker who could talk his way out of anything. Growing up in suburban Ohio, our house was a shrine to Ethan's every accomplishment. His Little League trophies lined the shelves, his school art projects covered the fridge. My own achievements? They usually got a polite good job before being stacked in a box somewhere. I remember one night when I was 10. I had just won a regional spelling bee. I came home clutching my trophy, excited to show everyone. But the living room was already filled with balloons. Ethan had scored 2 goals at his soccer game, and my parents had thrown him a surprise party. My trophy stayed in the bag all night. That was the pattern for years. I was the dependable one, the one they never had to worry about. Ethan got the attention, the praise, the excuses. If he failed a class, my parents blamed the teacher. If I got an A-, my mom would ask, "What happened to the A?" Dad always laughed off Ethan's bad behavior, calling him just a kid being a kid. Mom hovered over him like he was made of glass. And me? I learned to stay quiet and make myself smaller, because asking for attention usually led to criticism. Even as adults, nothing changed. Ethan still lived at home despite having a good job. Mom did his laundry, Dad paid his car insurance. And whenever I visited, I became the unpaid babysitter, the one who helped with bills, fixed Wi-Fi issues, and cooked dinner while Ethan lounged on the couch. Maybe that's why this trip meant so much to me. It was supposed to be my escape, my one selfish thing. I had finally saved enough money, finally carved out something that was mine. But standing there, realizing Ethan had taken even this from me, I felt like I was 10 years old again, invisible, unheard, and watching him get away with everything. Planning this trip had been the one thing keeping me going through endless 12-hour shifts at the hospital. I had a countdown calendar on my fridge. Each day I crossed off felt like a tiny victory. I skipped weekend brunches with my friends, turned down date invitations, and even sold some of my old college textbooks online just to save enough money. Every dollar I put aside felt like I was buying back a piece of my freedom. When I finally booked the flights and the Airbnb in Santorini, I cried with relief. I even printed out my itinerary and pinned it to my wall. I wanted something tangible to remind myself that this was real, that soon, I'd be far away from the chaos of my family. But Ethan noticed. "Wow, Greece," he said one night, smirking over his soda while sitting at the kitchen counter. Must be nice having money to blow. It's not blowing money, I told him. I've been saving for a year. He laughed. Why not just go somewhere cheap? Greece is wasted on you. You're just gonna read books by the beach. I ignored him, but he kept asking little questions: what day I was leaving, where I was staying, what time my flight was. I thought he was just being nosy. The night before my flight, I triple-checked everything. My passport was in my travel pouch, tucked safely in my backpack. I even placed the backpack on the chair next to my bed so I could grab it easily in the morning. But the next day, it was gone. At first, I thought maybe I left it at work, but I never took my passport there. Panic turned to suspicion as I remembered Ethan's smirk, his weird questions. Then the notification came, that picture of him standing on the whitewashed steps of OIA, grinning like he owned the place. It wasn't just that he had stolen my passport. He had stolen my dream, my effort, my escape. And when I confronted my parents, their response broke something inside me. Madison, it's not the end of the world, my mom said flatly. Let him enjoy himself. You can go another time. Another time. Like a whole year of sacrifice meant nothing. I confronted Ethan that night, my hands shaking as I stood in the doorway of his room. Where is my passport, Ethan? I demanded. He didn't even look guilty. He just grinned, lying on his bed with his phone in hand. Relax, Maddie. You needed a break anyway. Besides, I'm making better use of that ticket than you ever would. I felt my throat tighten. You stole it from me. You took everything I worked for. He shrugged like it was nothing. You're always so dramatic. It's just a trip. You'll survive. When I turned to my parents, hoping they'd finally take my side, Mom just folded her arms. Madison, yelling isn't going to solve anything. Ethan's already there. Just let it go. Let it go. My voice cracked. I worked for a year to afford this. And you're telling me to let it go? Dad looked up from his recliner, sighed, and said, Don't make this a big deal. You can plan another trip. It was like the air left the room. They didn't care. They never had. Ethan chuckled softly, muttering, You're so sensitive, and that was it, the final straw. I went to my room, shut the door, and packed a small duffel bag. I didn't even know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay here anymore. The house was quiet as I walked down the hallway. My suitcase wheels echoed on the hardwood floor like a drumbeat. When I reached the front door, I hesitated for just a second. Then I opened it, stepped out, and let it slam behind me. This time, I wasn't just leaving the house. I was leaving everything, the favoritism, the dismissals, the years of being invisible. I drove until the sun started coming up, my phone buzzing nonstop in the passenger seat. Calls from Mom, texts from Dad, even a few messages from Ethan, none of which I opened. By the time I stopped, I was 3 hours away from home, sitting in the parking lot of a cheap roadside motel. My body felt like it was made of stone, but for the first time in years, my mind felt clear. I wasn't going back. Over the next few weeks, I made my plan. I sold the few things I owned that mattered, my old gaming console, my extra furniture, even some jewelry I'd been gifted over the years. I found a tiny apartment in Columbus, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Moving there was terrifying. I didn't know anyone. I didn't even have a job lined up yet. But every box I unpacked felt like I was putting together the pieces of a life I actually wanted. I started waitressing at a little diner while looking for a nursing job. The pay was modest, but the regulars were kind, and for the first time, no one called me too serious or compared me to my brother. Nights were quiet, and at first, the silence felt unbearable. I'd lie awake wondering if I had made a huge mistake, if I should have stayed and fought harder for my trip, for my place in that family. But then, Slowly, the quiet started to feel like freedom. I joined a local yoga class. I cooked dinner for myself and lit candles just because I wanted to. I took long walks after work, listening to music instead of arguments. Little by little, I started to laugh again. The first time I laughed so hard I cried, at a silly joke a coworker made, I realized I hadn't felt that light in years. This wasn't just about a stolen passport anymore. This was about finally building a life where I wasn't the background character in someone else's story. I even made a promise to myself: one day, I would take that Greece trip again. This time, no one would be able to take it from me. It took about 2 months before my family started calling regularly again. First, it was Mom, leaving voicemails that sounded sweet but carried that familiar edge of guilt. "Madison, honey, it's been long enough. Your brother feels bad about what happened. Come home for dinner this weekend? Let's put this behind us." I didn't answer. Then Dad called, his tone heavier. "You're breaking your mother's heart, Maddie. We're family. Whatever happened, you don't just walk away from family." But every time they reached out, the knot in my stomach only grew tighter. Because it wasn't about love, it was about control. One afternoon, I got a text from Ethan himself. "Yo, sorry about the passport thing. You know I was just messing with you. No hard feelings." I stared at the screen in disbelief. No hard feelings? He had stolen an entire year of my effort, and now he wanted to laugh it off like a joke? I didn't reply. A week later, Mom called again, this time sobbing. "Your father isn't feeling well. He's been under so much stress since you left. Please, come home. We need you." For a second, my chest tightened with panic. But then I remembered the last time I fell for this trick, rushing home, only to find Dad perfectly fine, sitting with Ethan watching a football game like nothing happened. I put the phone down and took a deep breath. This time, I didn't rush back. Instead, I blocked Ethan's number and muted my parents' calls. I wasn't doing this to be cruel, I was doing it to survive. Because every time I let them back into my life, they reminded me of the girl I used to be, quiet, small, invisible. And I wasn't that girl anymore. One sunny afternoon, about 6 months after I left, I found myself sitting in a cozy cafe near my apartment. I had just finished applying for my dream nursing position at a nearby hospital. For the first time, I felt proud of the life I was building, not the life my family wanted for me, but the life I wanted. I thought about that morning at the airport, about the way my heart had shattered when I saw Ethan's post. For a long time, I thought that was the worst day of my life. But now, sitting there with a warm cup of coffee and a clear sense of peace, I realized that moment had been my turning point. Losing that trip forced me to face something much bigger, that I had been waiting for my family's validation my entire life. And I was done waiting. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't even want revenge. What I wanted was freedom, and I had it. I opened my travel app and bookmarked a flight to Greece, just because I could. And I smiled. Maybe I'd go next summer, maybe the year after. But this time, it would be my trip, on my terms. As I walked home, I thought about everyone out there who feels trapped in a family that doesn't see them. If they could hear me, I'd tell them this. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Family isn't proven by blood, it's proven by love. And if I ever do run into Ethan or my parents again, I won't be angry. I'll just smile, thank them silently for pushing me away, because they gave me the greatest gift of all. They gave me back myself.